May 28, 1935, Hanstetten, Bavaria. Hans-Dietrich Knoetzsch pushes the stick forward and the first Bf-109 lifts into the pale morning sky. The aircraft feels alive, responsive, hungry. No one knows yet that this revolutionary fighter will become the most produced aircraft in history. No one knows it will turn young men into corpses. They only know it is fast, it is elegant, and pilots are dying just trying to take it off. The fuselage gleams in the sunlight, all-metal monocoque construction, liquid-cooled inverted V12 engine, retractable landing gear, features that make it the future of air combat. But there's a problem embedded in Messerschmitt's genius design, a problem that will demand blood as payment. The landing gear retracts at an 85-degree angle, mounted to the fuselage rather than the wings. This revolutionary choice saves weight, it saves drag. It almost costs the Luftwaffe everything. The narrow wheel track, the distance between the two main wheels, makes the aircraft fundamentally unstable on the ground. During takeoff, the powerful slipstream from the propeller creates a sideways drift so violent that it becomes disproportionate. If a pilot isn't perfect during those first critical seconds, if his reflexes hesitate for even a fraction of a second, the forces imposed exceed the pivot point's tolerance. The landing gear leg collapses outward into its bay. The aircraft cartwheels. The pilot doesn't walk away. At least 10% of all Bf-109s were lost in takeoff and landing accidents. That's 1,500 aircraft destroyed before they ever saw combat. 1,500. Inexperienced pilots suffer the worst. Young men sent to the front with only 70 hours of flight time, watching the runway tilt beneath their wings as the controls stop responding. By 1943, when training became a luxury Germany couldn't afford, the ground accident rate climbs higher still. The Bf-109 becomes a killer, not of enemies, but of its own pilots, trained or not, the moment their boots leave the tarmac. Forward visibility while taxiing is non-existent. The long landing gear legs drive the fuselage up at such an angle that pilots cannot see past the nose during ground operations. The sideways opening canopy compounds the nightmare. It cannot even open in flight. If a pilot needs to bail out, he must jettison the entire canopy. Precious seconds evaporate. Some pilots jettison it too late. They've been burned, their faces melted to charcoal, their bodies twisted against the metal frame. So pilots taxi in sinuous patterns, weaving left and right to catch glimpses of the runway ahead. But this serpentine movement imposes stresses on the splayed undercarriage legs that they were never designed to handle. The legs bend, the pivots flex, and sometimes they snap. Crash landings become routine. Pilots learn to expect them. One veteran pilot reports crashing 8 times during training. 8 times the aircraft crumples. 8 times he climbs out, shaken, grateful to be breathing. But the design was deliberate. Messerschmitt's lightweight construction principle, minimize separate parts, concentrate loads on the firewall, demanded these compromises. The main landing gear, the main spar, the entire load-bearing structure, all funneled through that single firewall point. Remove the wings and the fuselage doesn't collapse. Pour fuel and ammunition into the fuselage and the aircraft stays light. But the price is paid in inches. The wheel track is too narrow. The ground angle is too steep. And the pilot sits in the center, trusting the design, knowing that one mistake during takeoff means fire and metal and pain. Erich Hartmann, who would become history's highest-scoring fighter ace with 352 victories, remembers it clearly. Speaking of the Bf-109, he states, "The only problems occurred during takeoff. It had a strong engine and a small, narrow-tread undercarriage. If you took off too fast, it would turn 90 degrees away. We lost a lot of pilots in takeoffs, not to the enemy, not in combat, but to their own aircraft, taxiing toward glory and crashing before they could leave the ground." June 22, 1941, Operation Barbarossa. The Luftwaffe pours into Soviet airspace with Bf-109s leading the charge. In the Kuban, the Caucasus, the Donetsk Basin, Everywhere the Germans press forward, the Bf-109 performs beyond expectations. But there's a truth hidden in every victory report. Most Soviet pilots are untrained. Many are conscripts. Their aircraft are older, slower, less agile. In 1941, a Bf-109 pilot doesn't need superior tactics. He needs to point and shoot. The Soviet Air Forces lose 21,200 aircraft, about half in combat, while the Luftwaffe claims a ratio of 21-1 against them. By 1942, German fighter units operating on the Eastern Front claimed they've achieved 12,000 Soviet aircraft destroyed. These numbers inflate Bf-109 pilot claims to surreal levels. Young men with less than 100 hours of combat experience claim double-digit kills in single missions. Erich Hartmann, during the Battle of Kursk in July 1943, claims 21 Soviet aircraft in 4 days. On July 7th alone, he becomes an ace in a day by claiming 7 victories. His commanding officer watches this unfold with intensity. Hartmann is barely 21 years old. But here's the dark secret. The Bf-109's apparent invincibility is built on killing opponents who can't fight back effectively. Soviet defensive armament is inadequate. Many pilots lack proper gun sights. Some hand-paint crosshairs on their windscreens because there's nothing else available. The Bf-109 dominates not because of superior engineering, but because it's a knife being used against conscripts armed with sticks. Later, when the Red Air Force receives better training, better aircraft, and American Lend-Lease fighters with functional gun sights, the arithmetic of air combat changes. The Bf-109's superiority evaporates. What remains is the harsh truth: the aircraft is difficult to fly, dangerous to operate, and demands perfection from its pilots. Perfection that becomes harder to maintain as the war drags on and fresh, properly trained pilots become extinct. High altitude, minus 40 degrees Celsius. The inverted V12 Daimler-Benz DB505 engine was designed for the skies of Europe, not for the extreme cold of a Russian winter. Pilots discover a horrifying reality. The engine oil freezes. It becomes putty. When the pilot strides to start the engine on the morning of a winter mission, nothing happens. The propeller won't turn. The engine is locked. It's mechanical rigor mortis. A captured Soviet pilot shows them a solution. Pour fuel into the engine sump. It thaws the oil. But this is a desperate measure, dangerous, unreliable, and it highlights a fundamental design flaw. The Bf-109 was optimized for spring and summer operations over Germany. It was never meant to operate in the lethal cold of the Soviet front. Yet that's exactly where it's sent. Hartmann remembers, pilots learned from the Soviets how to ignite fuel under the engine to warm it. This knowledge spreads through the units like contraband. Use Soviet techniques to keep your aircraft alive. But knowledge isn't prevention. Engines still fail. Aircraft still crash. Pilots still freeze to death, either in the aircraft or on the frozen ground after a crash landing. The Bf-109 was calculated to have a service life of 100 to 200 flight hours. By late 1943, aircraft are flying 300, 400, sometimes 500 hours. They're falling apart. Wings develop stress fractures. Tail structures fail during sharp maneuvers. The commander of Fighter Wing JG-2 Richthofen, Wilhelm Balthasar, dies when his Bf-1F1 experiences a structural failure during a test flight. His wings simply break away. The aircraft, engineered for speed and performance, becomes a coffin sealed by its own construction limits.
Every Bf-109 pilot learns the same bitter calculus. The aircraft has a combat radius of 300 kilometers on internal fuel alone. The range is 660 kilometers total. In the Battle of Britain, this means Bf-109 escorts can remain over English territory for only 10 minutes before fuel consumption forces them to turn back toward France. 10 minutes to find the enemy, engage, shoot them down, and disengage. The bombers they're supposed to protect lose those 10 minutes of coverage. The British Supermarine Spitfires and Hawker Hurricanes operate from home airfields. They can stay in the combat zone indefinitely. The Bf-109, by contrast, is always racing the clock. Later variants add drop tanks, 300-liter fuel pods that hang beneath the fuselage like a tumor, creating additional drag and reducing maneuverability. But even with them, the Bf-109 remains a short-legged fighter in a war that demands long-range penetration and extended loiter time. American P-51 Mustangs, German FW-190s, Soviet LA-5s, as the war progresses, nearly every opponent can stay aloft longer. The Bf-109 pilot is always the first to feel the fuel gauge dip toward empty. He's always calculating. Can I engage once more, or do I need to leave now to make it home? That calculation has killed countless pilots. Hartmann experiences it. In June 1944, American P-51s run his Messerschmitt out of fuel during intense maneuvering. He's forced to bail out. Only the mercy of a passing American fighter pilot, waggling his wings in salute rather than cutting Hartmann down in his parachute, saves his life. The Bf-109 is engineered to kill. It's also engineered to run out of time. The landing gear collapses. It collapses because the wheelbase is narrow. It collapses because the pilot, nervous under combat stress or merely tired from a long patrol, applies throttle with slightly too much pressure during takeoff. It collapses because the aircraft is fundamentally unstable on the ground. Pilots universally despise the landing gear. British test pilots who examined captured Bf-109s note the serious design compromise. Narrow track means better aerodynamics in the air, but near suicidal instability on the ground. To address this, some late Bf-109 variants, the G10s, G14s, and K-series, receive a fixed tall tail wheel, rather than the standard retractable design. This helps. The increased tail height provides slightly better ground clearance and stability. But the problem persists. By 1944, as Hitler's pilot pool consists increasingly of inexperienced teenagers with minimal flight training, ground accidents accelerate. A 16-year-old conscript rushed through fighter school in 6 months instead of the standard year plus, climbs into a Bf-109 for his first operational sortie. He applies throttle. The aircraft begins its takeoff roll. His reflexes, honed by a handful of flights, aren't quick enough. The swing develops. It becomes a roll. He has no altitude to recover. The aircraft cartwheels. He dies in the fire. This isn't enemy action. This is the Bf-109 doing what Messerschmitt's design built it to do: betray pilots the moment they make a human mistake. 10% of all Bf-109s destroyed, not 50% of that, but 10% of the entire production run, are lost to takeoff and landing accidents. That's roughly 3,400 aircraft. 3,400 pilots, ground crew, and potential aces never make it off the ground. They die taxiing. They die during the first few seconds of acceleration. They die because the aircraft demands superhuman precision every time. No mercy, no second chances. The Bf-109 F series enters service in 1941 with revolutionary aerodynamic refinements. New wings with semi-elliptical tips, revised wing radiators, cleaner engine cowling. It's the high water mark of Bf-109 development: smooth, elegant, deadly. But early production models reveal a catastrophic flaw: structural failure. Pilots report wings wrinkling during maneuvers, wings fracturing, tails failing. JG-2 commander Wilhelm Balthasar dies when his F-1 loses both wings while evading a Spitfire. At certain engine settings, a high-frequency oscillation develops in the tailplane spar. This oscillation becomes amplified by engine vibrations. The combined effect creates a destructive resonance at the rear fuselage fin attachment point. The tail structure shatters. The aircraft becomes a falling projectile.
Engineers institute an emergency fix: slightly thicker wing skins, reinforced spars, 2 external stiffening plates screwed onto the outer fuselage on each side. Later, the rear fuselage structure is reinforced. The problems diminish, but never fully disappear. Pilots learn to be cautious during high-speed maneuvers. Don't exceed a certain G-force. Don't turn too hard. Don't push the aircraft to its calculated limits, because the calculation was wrong. The aircraft that's supposed to be invincible has been built with a death sentence written into its wings. Some pilots live long enough to learn this. Others never get the chance. The fuel tank is mounted directly behind the cockpit. It's large, complex, and vulnerable to enemy fire. Unlike later German fighter designs, the Bf-109's fuel tank isn't fully self-sealing in earlier variants. Armor plating is added later.
But for the first years of the war, a lucky burst of machine gun fire from a pursuing enemy fighter can puncture the tank. Fuel sprays across the superheated engine. Fire erupts in the cockpit. Pilots describe the sensation: a violent shudder, a surge of heat, flames climbing the windscreen. The canopy can't open in flight. It has to be jettisoned. If the fire is spreading fast, the pilot has perhaps 3 seconds. 3 seconds to gather his reflexes, locate the emergency jettison handle, pull it, and roll out of the seat. Some don't make it. Their bodies burn. Others bail out successfully, but are killed in their parachutes by strafing enemy fighters. By 1943, the Bf-109G and later variants received cutoff valves for the wing radiators and fuel system improvements. Damage to one radiator no longer means the coolant leaks everywhere. The pilot can shut down the damaged radiator and fly for at least 5 minutes on the second one. Theoretically, enough to make it back to friendly territory. But theoretically is cold comfort when a pilot's fuel tank is punctured at 7,000 meters over enemy territory and he's watching the altitude gauge spin downward. The aircraft bleeds energy. The engine begins to starve. Forced landing in hostile territory means capture, or worse. Hartmann experienced this. Debris from a Soviet IL-2 aircraft he just shot down damaged his Bf-109G6 engine on August 20, 1943. He was forced to land behind Soviet lines. He faked internal injuries to avoid capture, convinced Soviet soldiers he was too wounded to move, and escaped after his crew chief rescued him. He returned to his unit on August 23rd. Not everyone is that lucky. Most pilots who lose their engines over enemy territory become prisoners of war or casualties of war. The Bf-109 enters service in 1937. By 1945, 8 years have passed. The aircraft has been upgraded, modified, and redesigned countless times. There's the A series, B series, C, D, E, Emil, F, Friedrich, G, Gustav, and finally K, Kurfürst. Each variant supposedly fixes the previous variant's problems. Each variant supposedly makes the aircraft more lethal, more reliable, more flyable. In reality, each variant adds complexity, weight, and new failure modes. The G series adds a reinforced wing structure, heavier welded cockpit framing, and additional armor plate. It's heavier. It's slower. The weight increases from the A series to the K series by nearly 25%. Performance increases lag behind weight increases. By 1944, the Bf-109K4 is, theoretically, the final production version of perfection. It carries up to 2,000 PS of engine output. But it's also a fragile assemblage of compromises. Pressurized cockpits on some variants that crack under the stress, advanced superchargers that fail without warning, ammunition systems that jam. And the aircraft is still unstable on the ground, still has a narrow wheelbase, still demands superhuman precision during takeoff. The designers have spent 8 years trying to fix the unfixable, the fundamental incompatibility between the lightweight construction Messerschmitt chose in 1934 and the increasing demands of modern air combat. Every modification is a band-aid. Every upgrade creates new problems. By 1944, experienced pilots recognized the truth. The aircraft can't be fixed. It can only be lived with day by day, mission by mission, until a mechanical failure or enemy bullet ends the pilot's life. Erich Hartmann's career is a map of the Bf-109's lethal properties. He flies 1,404 combat missions. He participates in aerial combat on 825 separate occasions. He's credited with 352 aerial victories. But listen to what he doesn't say. He's forced to crash land his fighter 16 times. 16. Mechanical failure, engine damage, hydraulic system collapse, structural failure. The aircraft breaks beneath him 16 times. Not once is he shot down directly. The enemy never brings him down. The Bf-109 does. The aircraft itself failing, breaking, dying. He survives these crashes. Many pilots don't. On October 31, 1942, during a training flight that should have been routine, Hartmann's roommate takes his scheduled aircraft. The roommate develops engine trouble and crash lands. He's killed. It was supposed to be Hartmann in that seat. Hartmann had been confined to quarters as punishment for performing unauthorized aerobatics. That punishment saved his life. By late 1943, the German pilot training system is collapsing. Inexperienced pilots are rushed to the front after 70 hours of flight time. Some have never actually landed a Bf-109 before seeing combat. They die during takeoff. They die during landing. They die when they push the aircraft even slightly beyond its operating limits and something breaks. The engine oil freezes in winter. The fuel tank ruptures in combat. The landing gear collapses during the first roll of takeoff. The structural failure happens at 8,000 meters, and there's no time to bail out. By 1945, the cumulative effect has become visible. Germany's fighter force is bleeding out not from enemy air superiority, although that certainly exists, but from attrition. Aircraft are lost to mechanical failure faster than they can be replaced. Pilots are dying to the aircraft itself at rates that make even victory meaningless. The Bf-109, once revolutionary, has become a death trap maintained by tradition and desperation. Pilots fly it because they have no choice. They die flying it for the same reason. The Bf-109 G6, nicknamed Gustav, rolls off the production line starting in February 1943. It's beautiful, sleek, purposeful, the aircraft that Germany believes will reclaim air superiority. By March 1943, production reaches 12,000 units. 12,000. More G6s are built than any other single variant of the Bf-109. But the G6 is also the variant that Hartmann flies most frequently, and Hartmann's experience with it is instructive. The aircraft performs well in combat, when it performs at all. But its engine, the DB605A, suffers from reliability problems. Initial production is so defective that the Luftwaffe is forced to limit maximum power to just 1310 PS instead of the rated 1475 PS. Pilots can't push the engine to full power without risking catastrophic failure. It takes until June 8, 1943, months of operational use, before the full power rating is cleared for service. Even with full power, the G6 is sensitive to fuel quality, oil temperature, altitude, and pilot technique. Carburetors are replaced with fuel injection systems later, but early variants suffer from vapor lock. The fuel vaporizes in the fuel line at high altitude, starving the engine. The pilot experiences a sudden power loss at the worst possible moment, during a dive, during combat, during an attempt to escape. The nickname Die Beule, the bulge, comes from the raised sections of the cowling needed to accommodate the larger breech block of the 13mm MG-131 machine guns. These bulges create aerodynamic drag. The aircraft that's supposed to be sleek becomes lumpy. It's slower than earlier F-Series fighters at some altitudes. Pilots hate it. They can't do anything about it. They fly it because it's what they're given. The G6 becomes the aircraft that 12,000 German pilots die in or crash in, not because of enemy action, but because the machine itself is fundamentally compromised, a beauty that hides a coffin. By 1944, the Bf-109 is obsolete. The Americans are producing P-51D Mustangs in vast quantities. The Soviet Union is manufacturing IL-5 and IL-7 fighters by the thousands. The British Supermarine Spitfire Mark 14 is faster at most altitudes. The Bf-109 remains lethal in capable hands, but it's no longer dominant. It's no longer revolutionary. It's just a fighter aircraft, one among many, and not the best one anymore. But obsolescence doesn't matter when there's no replacement. Germany's newer designs, the Me-262 jet fighter, the Me-163 rocket interceptor, exist in such small quantities that they have no impact on the air war. The Bf-109, for all its flaws, is what's available. So, pilots continue flying it. They continue crashing during takeoffs. They continue losing engines at altitude.
By 1944, the Bf-109 is obsolete. The Americans are producing P-51D Mustangs in vast quantities. The Soviet Union is manufacturing Law-5 and Law-7 fighters by the thousands. The British Supermarine Spitfire Mark 14 is faster at most altitudes. The Bf-109 remains lethal in capable hands, but it's no longer dominant. It's no longer revolutionary. It's just a fighter aircraft, one among many, and not the best one anymore. But obsolescence doesn't matter when there's no replacement. Germany's newer designs, the Me-262 jet fighter, the Me-163 rocket interceptor, exist in such small quantities that they have no impact on the air war. The Bf-109, for all its flaws, is what's available. So, pilots continue flying it. They continue crashing during takeoffs. They continue losing engines at altitude. They continue experiencing structural failures during combat maneuvers. They continue doing what they've done for 8 years, flying an aircraft that wants to kill them, fighting an enemy that's steadily growing stronger, and praying that the narrow margins separating survival from death remain in their favor for one more day, one more mission, one more flight. Hartmann survives. He flies his last combat mission on May 8, 1945, hours before Germany surrenders. He shoots down a Yak-9 over Brno, Czechoslovakia. It's his 352nd victory. Then he surrenders his aircraft to the Americans, who hand him over to the Soviets. He spends 10 years in Soviet prison camps before being released in 1955. He has nightmares about the Bf-109 for the rest of his life. Most pilots